Okay, so example 1 is pretty much the easiest of the 10 examples. So we're looking at 3 basic chords here, and these are very, very easy. So first we'll go through those, look at the notes involved. To begin with, we've got an E minor triad, which involves the E note on the D string, G and B strings, so that's 3rd and 2nd string, and together this makes up the E minor triad. E, G, B. The next is one of the easiest chords you'll ever play, all open strings. So we're going to basically use the G and the B note like we did with the E minor. This time though, we're introducing a different bass note, which is the D. And the next one there, we're going to change the D bass note to a C bass note. So these are subtle variations, just using the change of bass note. Notice that the G and the B strings are the same. So for the first half of the example, we've got a really easy picking pattern, starting like so. Take note of the pick strokes, change to the next shape. Change the bass note, and repeat. Play that whole idea again. And what we're doing in the second half of the idea is introducing the open E string with a slightly different picking pattern, because we're just going straight through this time, not back to the lower strings. And repeat that. Okay, so example 2 is just a little harder than the first example, and we're going to be adding in a note on the B string here. That's the D note. So to begin with, we've got our root note E, our 3rd G, and our D, which turns this one into an E minor 7 chord. And all we're doing then again is changing the bass note here. So we just take our first finger off, replace that again with the C bass note, and repeat that. So I'll just play the first 4 bars. So we've basically taken some simple notes, the G and the B string. So we've got the G and the D note on the B string. and just change the bass notes, E, D, and C. And this is the common theme running throughout this tutorial. So these are loosely based around the E minor, D, and C chords. We're just changing the voicings slightly using notes from the E minor or G major scale. Okay, in the second half of example 2, we're going to add in the E string like we did in the first example with the chord voicings that we're using to begin with. So we get... So this is a nice and melodic idea. And this is the thing with these arpeggiations, we can get some very nice melodic concepts going. So very good for the guitarist wanting to sound melodic but without playing melodies, so we're just arpeggiating chords instead. And again, the concept running through this is that we just change the bass note but keep the other notes the same. C bass note. We're going to change it up a bit at the end. So we're using the E string, the D note, and the G note. Don't forget that you can strum these as well. Okay, now we arrive at example 3, and this time we're going to be introducing some color tones, as I like to call these, on the E string. So we'll be using our standard E minor triad, but we're going to introduce the F sharp note on the E string. I sort of associate this a bit with Jeff Buckley. I think he used that extensively in his track Lover You Should Have Come Over. It's a really nice voicing. Bit of a bittersweet sort of sound about it. I'm using the low 6 there with that. But what we're going to do here is just arpeggiate that, like we're pretty much doing for all the examples. Now the concept at work here is I'm moving that note up within the scale. So next after F sharp comes G. But what I'm also doing is changing the bass note. So we get E off, go to the D string. So we're moving the color note up, but we're moving the bass note down. And this is a nice kind of balance that we get then. And again, we're going to do that. So we're going to move the G up to the A note on the E string. And we're going to put the bass note at C on the A string. Play that with our open G and B strings. And to finish this half, I'm doing some counterpoint here to start with. That's the C note on the B string and the C note on the A string. And I tend to use hybrid techniques. I'll use the pick on the A string and the third or the middle finger on the B string. Upstroke after that, so it's... And you can kind of think of that as a C major 7 chord. We've got the root, the major 7, which is the B, the G note, which is the 5th, and the E note, which is the 3rd. So here's the first half. Okay, for the second half, basically what I'm doing here is adding a more melodic characteristic to things. So I'm employing the F sharp and the G note in the first bar, and we're switching between those. So this just makes things a little more dramatic. Now this time we are moving the melodic notes up, but both of them sort of thing. So whereas we had F sharp and G, now we've got G and A. Now remember that what I'm doing here is moving up within the G major or E minor scale. We're not going up to B, but F sharp, G and A, which are all within E minor or G, with those triad shapes or chords that we were doing. Next. I guess it's up to you whether you use your fourth finger or third there. I prefer fourth. When I come off this one, there's a bit of a ghost note. So I'll go. Now, it's not really intentional. That's why I refer to it as a ghost note. But it helps me just to get into that next shape. And what I do here, I tend to use the middle and first finger, but whatever works best is up to you. So there we're employing the C bass note again with our G and B notes and the F sharp and G note. So we get, and you can pretty much come off at that point, but I'd recommend staying down with those last open strings. So here's the second half of example 3. Okay, so this time round the focus here is on just little embellishments, which is this bit. So we're starting again with our E minor type thing, or E minor 7, once that D note goes down. We're going to do a triplet hammer pull-off sequence. We're going to pick the B note first. Don't be concerned about the E string, you'll probably get a ghost note there, which is just an unintentional flick of that string. It sounds okay. So we're doing that triplet, back to the G note and the E note. And once again, that concept of changing the bass note, since our progression's pretty much the same. So we're going into D. But notice that the rest of the notes are the same. Now into C. Now there's a bit of a difference there that you can see. We're using the C note this time, since we're pretty much doing a C chord. So this time we're doing the triplet hammer pull-off thing on the B string with our B, C and B note. Back to the G and the B string. And then we're just going to basically do some random stuff here. Take note that that's what you want to do. So once you do these examples and learn these thoroughly, it's pretty much just a matter of randomizing them and experimenting, because you'll get different sorts of sounds with different open strings, and then you can experiment also with different scale tones, fretted notes and stuff. Now on the second run through, that changes a little bit, so we just... you can use your fourth finger there when we do that. That's the alternate ending where you see the number 2 in the transcription. So here's the first half. I'll just play this a little bit slower. Note there that you can keep the D note ringing out with the E note. It's a nice sound. Okay, now for the second half. So what we're doing here is introducing the C note with our E minor chord. And this is basically a C major shape. We're just we've got the C on the top, so the E on the bottom. Well, it's really E minor there into C. But I don't think the names are too important. We're really just trying to get into that concept of using the different scale tones and open strings. So this time we're using that triplet sequence with our C note here. And next we're introducing the D bass note with the D note on the B string with our triplet sequence. And just a more standard idea here with sort of what we were doing before. Just with a C bass note and a couple of open strings. And the next bar. And these 4 bars will then repeat. Okay, so I'm going to play the last 4 bars here a little bit slower. In example 5, we're getting a little bit more minimalistic, I guess, with those touches of melodicisms that we've been doing, and the arpeggiations and so forth, bass note changes. Towards the end, there's a bit more of an interesting picking pattern, which we'll have a look at. So what we're basically doing here is just changing the strings a little bit. Instead of working with the 3rd string this time, we're just going to work with the root notes and the B and the E string with the color notes on the E string. So in the first bar, so that starts very dramatic. Changing the bass note, and we're going to change the color notes a bit. Okay, so in the third bar there, we're using the C bass note with the B and the E string. And you might have noticed in the intro, I think I did that with the third and the middle finger, but it doesn't matter too much, whatever feels better to you. And repeat. A little bit of a change in the next half of this. Kind of like what we were doing in the previous example where we just introduced the F sharp and the G note with the other notes. Sticking with the F sharp this time when we change to the D bass note and back to the E there. And this gets very interesting, so there's a bit of a stretch here, and this is one of my favorite C-type voicings. So if you're not used to stretching, this may prove pretty tricky, but if you work on it a bit, I'm sure your hand can stretch into this one. So we have the C bass note, as always here, B string, and we've got the B note. Now interestingly, the B note is actually the 7th in C major, but you get a different sort of sound when it's all the way up there. And in fact, it's the 7th from C in G major or E minor anyway. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we've got it there. That's the B and the C note. Or the open B string. Or up here, higher. And that's my particular favorite. So we're going to pick through the C to the B string and then to the higher B note. So you see we're using the B and the B. So it's actually an octave. I'm going to change that then to the A note. Okay, so I'm going to play the first half here and we'll see how we go. Now towards the end I was mentioning that picking pattern, so we're going to take a look at that now, and in fact this theme continues into example 6, but it sounds good at the end of this example. So we're going to take our E minor shape and we're going to embellish it with a little scale run. So the scale run will be E, F sharp, G, F sharp. So we get... This is one of my favorite ideas to use with this type of thing. Creates a nice dramatic sound and feel. Changing the bass note, same scale run. Sorry, I muffed that one. A little bit of a different thing towards the end here. So we're sort of just backing off a bit. And I'm going to use another one of my favorite voicings. This will be a C major 7. Very beautiful voicing, very airy. Reminds me a lot of the Cocteau Twins, particularly when you strum it. It works nicely to the F major 7 there. But we're not going to go there today, so I'm just going to play this idea a little bit slower. Next one. Next one. C major 7 voicing. And repeat. Next voicing. Finishing with C major 7. Okay, we are most certainly upping the ante in example 6. Okay, so to begin with, we've got our E minor basic chord with all 4 strings there. And we're going to melodicize this a bit with the A note and the G note. Just make sure to use alternate picking. In the next bar, again, we're going to start with a D bass note, with a similar idea to what we were employing towards the end of the last example. In the third bar, we've got pretty much a C chord. We're embellishing that with that interesting addition of the D string, which creates a suspended sort of sound. Normally in a C chord you would have the E note being the third from C. Well, when you suspend it, you take that third out and replace it with either the fourth or the second. So in this case we've got the C with the D, so that would be a suspended second with just those 2 notes. So there's a nice harmonic tension there. And a bit of variation then, it's more like a C add 9 because we've got the D note there. And the rhythm for this one. So you've got that 8th note and 16th notes. So just be careful of that, although it does sound alright if you just pick straight through it. But you would have to include the B note before the D note, which keeps more in rhythm with the previous bars. In bar 5 there, a bit of a variation here, so we're going to use the G and the F sharp note. Next bar, starting on the D bass note. So again, we're going down, and you'll notice these ideas are getting lower in pitch, which gives us that nice sinking, melancholy feel. This one's the same as bar 3, and we're going to do a sort of a country S-type hammer-on thing here. Okay, I'm going to play the first 8 bars here in example 6. Here we go. Okay, now for the next half, we're making extensive use of counterpoint. So in counterpoint we basically have the lower to the higher note, sort of a melodic idea, used in classical music quite a bit. So, you know, a lot of this we've got the G note with the change in bass notes, so E and G, D and G, C and G. So this is a really cool thing to do, and of course, as always, you can experiment with different scale tones. For whatever note you're on. Just throwing that one out there for you, so if you want to try that out, you can do that. Okay, so beginning with E and G. Now for some silly reason in the intro, I think I may have been using my 3rd finger here. Now I don't recommend doing that, purely because then when you have to get to the 5th fret, you really have to stretch out, so it makes more sense to use your middle. It's much easier to do that, although I can stretch out from like that. But middle, probably better. Just change to the D bass note. With a bit more of a melody there. Towards the end. Into our C bass note with a G note. Into the A note on the E string. With a D note and an E note. And towards the end there, just sort of get your middle finger up a bit. I'm going to pick the E string, the D note, G, D. So we get some nice ringing out sort of effect there. Starting off again like we did to begin this section. Just a variation there in the next bar. I'm going to do that interval again from the C note up to this high B. So really got to stretch out to the E string, G note and E string. Oops. Keep that C note down if you can, then we're going to use the D, E, B on the G string and back to D. So we get a nice so I'd recommend with this, and as with all the examples, you really want to make sure that all the notes ring out as much as possible, because that's what we want. We're just one guitarist here, although there is a bass line with the backing track and so forth, but it's only really covering the bottom end. And if you let all the notes ring out with that, it really does kind of fill up the sound, but in a nice way, not in a cluttered sort of way. Okay, here's the last half, just a little bit slower. Okay, this is perhaps some of my favourite sorts of things to do with a progression like this one. So we're basically starting with really minimal counterpoint. So we've got E and the B note to start with. I've got the D and the A note. And the C and the G note. Okay, so on a theoretical level, E functions as our root, as does D and C throughout all these examples, since we're using the 6-5-1 progression within E minor or G major. In the first case, E with the B note. That's basically the fifth, the B. If you played that as a power chord, it just sounds like this. But this one's a higher octave or in a higher register. Now when you do the D, again, it's the fifth. And C and G. So what you're really doing is a really spaced out type of power chord in a counterpoint fashion. So basically that's just intervallically really wide from this low root note up to the higher fifth. So it really doesn't sound like a power chord obviously, but it's the fifth. Now in the second run through, what we do is we just take that concept and then just add in a note and go back. So we've got the So I'm using the C note on the E string, back to the B note again. A little bit tricky right hand wise, just because we've got to have our pick and our finger down for the counterpoint, and then another upstroke at the end. Move that down. This time it'll be the A with the B note, and the C and the D note. Now, I guess the best way to do this is just again with first and middle finger, and when you've done that, just move up. Just try to keep this C note ringing out. A little bit of a tricky sequence. So to the D note, E, B, D. You can still keep the first finger down. You might want to take, well, we have to take the third finger off at this point, and the middle, and we move over to the A note. So I might just see what I do within the context of the two bars. Whatever works best for you is okay. Just try to keep as much of it ringing out as possible. Okay, so this is perhaps one of the coolest ideas you can ever learn. It's got a bit of string skipping in there, so we're going to go from the 5th to the 2nd string in a lot of this. And what we're going to do is we're going to use those two notes that we've been using, but we're going to arpeggiate them using the B string as well. So best way to learn this is just to look at it a little bit slower. So that's what I'm going to do. So we go. Now what's really cool about it is the fact that the picking pattern and the strings don't really change. We're basically just later on going to add in an extra note. But if you look at these three, it's just the same. Repeat that. There's a slide out there which sounds really cool, leading into the 7th position, back for this one. So in the next or last half of it, I should say, what we're doing is using that concept, but we're just going to change, at one point in the bar, we're just going to introduce the C note, at least in this case. And it is a slightly different picking pattern there, so we get... and into the last half, whereas I think last time it started on the B string, this time it's from the E string to the B string. So it's... just take that concept down a couple of frets. This time we're going to use the 7th fret with the 5th fret on the E string. Now pretty much the same thing, 2 frets lower. Towards the end there, I didn't introduce the A note, that was in the last bar, but you can do that. So these are flexible, you don't have to do exactly the same thing as what I'm doing, but never hurts to do that and then just go off in your own direction. Okay, so I'm going to play the last half, and slightly slower tempo, not too slow though. Okay, so we're mellowing out somewhat. There's not as much of a jangly sort of feel or sound to this one. And what's interesting about this, and it's a really key concept in my own compositions and style, is the use of the power chord shape with open strings. So basically what we're doing here, and a lot of it, is utilizing the E power chord. So that's the E and the B note on the A and the D string, 7th position. The D power chord, a whole step lower, and another whole step lower for the C power chord. And you can get a lot of mileage out of these, so if you know all your power chords across the neck and the key that you're in at the time, it usually works best with G major or E minor, C major and A minor. At the moment we're in the key of G major. So it works well with that, and through experimentation you can add different notes in and things and get lots of really cool sounds, as you'll get to know once you've learnt this example. So we're going to start with that power chord shape and use the open G string with it, so it'll sound and look like this. And as is pretty much common throughout the examples, there's a lot of repetition in the picking pattern and the strings that we're hitting. So we just move that down 2 frets. Another 2 frets. And repeat. So that's the first 4 bars. In the next 4 there's a slight variation to the picking pattern, so we'll have a look at that. Back into the 7th position. So this time the last 3 picks we're picking from the A to the D and the G string, whereas before we picked from the G to the D to the A string. So we're going from lower to higher this time. Down a couple. Down another couple. And a little bit more of a technical picking pattern here. So basically what I'm doing is just filling it out a bit more. Now this is into the next key concept, so we're kind of using what we've been doing, similar type of thing, but what we're going to do now is introduce melodic notes on the B string, and this is one of the things that I love to do. So, you know, instead of playing a standard E minor bar chord or jazz shape, and the D and the C, well, we can instead omit the 3rd string fretted note, just keep that as the open G string, so we get so that G string, open. So we've got the power chord shape, open G string, and then we've got the scale tone on the B string, in this case E. With the D, we've got the F sharp, that's at the 7th on the B string, and then the E minor. Got the 8th fret on the B string. So in the first bar of this bit, we're going to do this. This is pretty much the same rhythm as what we were doing before, just with that addition of the more melodic note. Take that concept down into the D position, 5th position. Then we take that same concept down into the C position, 3rd position. We're going to fill it out a bit more towards the end of that. With that part. So I'll just play these 4 bars for you now. Here we go. This is from the 9th bar to the 12th bar. Basically what we're doing now is taking the same sort of chord shapes and just moving those, sorry, not moving them, but what we're doing is we're just sort of making into a slightly different picking pattern. And we're actually using that melodic note another time within the bar, as you'll notice there. Just here. So we're emphasizing that. Down into the D position. C position. Okay, so I'm going to play these last 4 bars and we'll see how we go with that. Okay, this is example 9, and this is quite a moody idea. Now the reason for this is because of the C note on the G string working in tandem with the B string open. Now if you note there, the B and the C note are next door to each other if we played them on the same string. But in this case we can make good use of it because we can play them at the same time using the open B string. So we get a nice harmonic tension between that with the E note. The only thing I tend to have a problem with here is occasionally, if that pinky finger doesn't get up enough, you can get this sort of buzzy sort of noise. Now it can sound pretty cool at times, and other times it can just sound annoying, so I'll leave that up to your own perceptions, but I try not to get that as much as possible, so you just want to make sure that pinky's really upright. Now all you got to do from there is just lift the first finger off, so we're just changing the chord into with the D bass note. Now the C bass note. And note the rhythm here is pretty much similar to what we've been doing throughout in most of the examples. On the second ending, where you see number 2, that's the alternate ending, it ends a little bit differently. Oops. Just for a bit of variation, really. Okay, so from this point we're pretty much doing the same thing, but this time we're going to introduce the E string into it, string 1. Again, it's pretty much the same rhythm, just with a different note combination. So note there that we're changing those bass notes regularly, so from the E to the D to the C, because after all we're following that progression. The 6, the 5 and the 4. And once we get into the C part, we're doing a B note bend there, And this is a little bit tricky. I find this bit probably the hardest bit. So a couple of choices. You can just take off, leave third down. I tend to back the third finger up with my middle finger there. So it'll sound like this. And I think in the introduction I was just taking everything off, just leaving third down. But as you can see there, you can actually include the first finger there and just use that as a sort of anchor to help you along. And just ending on the E note. Okay, so we finally arrived to the end, and this is example 10, and this will most definitely challenge just about anyone. The arpeggiation techniques here are very intensive, so not very fast, but a lot of accuracy involved there, and a lot of stamina required and concentration to get it right. Okay, now what we're basically basing these ideas off are triads. Now, although we started down in the lower register, here we're kind of in the middle register. So we've got the E root note with the G, and basically what's going to happen here is we're going to use that with the open E string. And we're going to transport a similar idea down into the, it's like a D shape, so we've got the D and the F sharp. That's the root and the third. And this time again with the open E string. And we simply take that down into the C position, so we've got the C root note and the E, which is the third, with the E string acting as unison. Now what I chose to do next was just spice it up a bit, so we'll chuck in the flatted fifth. So we've got the C note and the F sharp with the E note. Now this is a nice, really nice sort of chord. It's really modal, so it's got that Lydian characteristics, very mystical sounding. C Lydian being the fourth mode in G major. And that'll work nicely over that. So similar sort of picking pattern. So we're going to go back up into E minor with our E and our F sharp note, but this time we're going to introduce the B note as well. Now B is actually the fifth, so we had the root, the third, and this is the fifth. So if we put those together, we get that. We're going to intersperse the open string with the B note. I'm going to do pretty much the same thing down in the D position here. This time it'll be the A note with the D shape here. Move that exact same idea just back a whole step. And this time again, back to the flatted fifth, we're just going to introduce the B note with that. You could probably use the C note there too. Oops. I just thought the B sounded a bit more dramatic. Okay, moving on. So we've got our E and our G note. This time though we're going to use the octave E on the E string. Now we're going to use our D shape here. We're going to use that with the D octave. So you can see here there's a bit of a theme occurring. We've got that one, this one. Next we actually have this, which is the same as that. So the D, this is C, just 2 frets lower. So to the D shape with the D octave. Just move that back a whole tone. Flatten, or sorry, add the flattened fifth here. So we get... That sort of goes back to what I was saying before. So we are actually using that C note here, as opposed to B the last time. Okay, so I'm going to play the first 8 bars. We'll see how we go with that. By the way, what I meant to say was the first 12 bars. Okay, now this really is the hardest part, especially getting from this bit so what I tend to do is I really kind of rev into it. I just slide into the E note at the 14th fret on the D string. And we've got that G note there. So take note that these are the 2 same notes as we were doing here. So what we're basically doing here is we've got that E, G note, we've got the B note, so the E minor. But what I've chosen to do here is just spice it up with the 15th fret, that's a G note. So it's really just a repetition of the 3rd here in a higher octave. But it gives it a more dramatic sort of sound rather than just... So as always, we're just going to arpeggiate through this, so we get... So what we do is we take that 3rd shape, bring that back into D. So we've got D, F sharp. We've got a note there. So we've got a D triad. And we've got the E note down here on the E string. All you got to do then is just bring that same shape back a whole step. And repeat. And that was the way I chose to end that. So we've got the open E string with the F sharp note. So you'll just need to use your pick there on the 6th string, and again the 3rd or the middle finger on the 1st string. Or we could add a bit more to it. You don't have to end it at all if you don't want to. You could just repeat or go off in another musical tangent somewhere and have some fun with that. Okay, so I'll just demonstrate these last 4 bars. 5 actually, sorry, including that ending. And you can practice that then. Here we go.